You had your 90th birthday recently, which is a real milestone, and I hear the red carpet was rolled out for you.
It was wonderful. It was overwhelming.
Just tell me the kinds of people that were on your top table, because that might surprise a whole bunch of people that weren't there.
People who had been involved in struggle over the years, Maori and Pakeha.
A lot of people would think that you didn't even like Pakeha, eh?
Well, that's what they reckon, and I thought, some of my best friends are Pakehas. Yeah.
T was always really clear, that Pakeha have a role and responsibility in building a genuinely just and treaty-based Aotearoa. And in typical T fashion, she was never one to hold back when she thought we screwed up. But I think that created a foundation for those Pakeha she worked with to work towards a genuine partnership basis for Aotearoa, not the kind of co-optive partnership we see from the Crown today.
Along with her Pakeha mates, there was a top cop on the top table too.
People underestimate the influence that she played behind the scenes and working with us.
Raised by her koro and named after an Egyptian princess from the Bible, Titewhai Harawira has spent her life fighting. And that's got her offside with some, not just Pakeha either. She's been a stalwart at Waitangi, first challenging the Crown, and then in what seems like a stunning contradiction, morphing into a role escorting them onto the marae. More on that later. But first, where did that fire come from?
My grandfather sent all his girls to Queen Vic to be educated. The boys had to stay home and help on the farm. My grandfather always said the women need to be able to be educated and to choose whatever professions they wanted to go into. My father-in-law, he was a minister of the Anglican Church, but on a Sunday he would use the pulpit to talk about what was happening to Maori families throughout the country. And so those are the things that made me strong and determined.
What was the driving principle?
To honour our treaty.
Her first protest was refusing to be taught by a male teacher while at an all-girls college, and it's been non-stop ever since.
Whenever I Googled you, it would go, Māori activist. I mean, I wonder what you would put under your name.
Not activists, that's a Pakeha term for rubbish for our people when they are working for the rights of our people.
Radical Māori activists planning the overthrow of the New Zealand government.
Why should we be told by the Europeans how to live on our land?
Mum was involved in Ngā Tamatoas from 1970-71, from the earliest of days. Very much involved in politics of Māori, politics of women, politics of the Pacific, and politics of fighting nuclear proliferation around the world.
Titewhai Harawira has spent much of her life in Auckland, working with others behind the scenes, drafting submissions, giving evidence at the Waitangi Tribunal and in the courts, and advocating through the Auckland District Māori Council, a fiery mix of academics and activists. At one time, Titewhai was the only woman on the New Zealand Māori Council.
How was that?
If there was a rugby match on, they'd be saying, come on, come on, come on. We've got to...
Pass the motion, we've got to watch the rugby.
Go to rugby.
Oh.
Especially if it was in Wellington.
Back then, wahine Māori had to fight to put women's issues on the agenda and fight against stereotypes associated with protesters.
So yourself and Hana and Eva, you always look a mass of dash.
did that deliberately because the media was talking about, you know, that lot, they're scruffy, they're dirty, they stink, they don't wash, they haven't got a job and all of that. So we said, okay, we'll get dressed up for every struggle we go to. Every now and again we'd throw on a fur coat and, you know, look all classy.
I am very firm about taking second place to men's games.
Waitangi 1998. That's when Tītewhai Harawira stopped another woman, Helen Clark, from speaking on the pie. It wasn't personal, she said. Her message was aimed firmly at the taumata.
And I said, I don't care who she is. She ain't talking before me, that's for sure. Or any Maori woman, for that matter. So I said to the taumata, I'm just going to tell her to just sit down. So I turned my back on him, and here was Dover Samuels saying, it's all right, yes, you can talk. And I'm saying, no, it's not, and you're not going to. You know?
Who are you most angry at?
The men.
The other women in the iwi, what was their stance?
My whole focus was on Helen to make sure that she didn't speak. So whether, apart from Tariana, our women, I never knew until after that they supported what I had done.
That's lucky though, because strategically that could have gone not well because you didn't go to them firsthand.
No, 2 weeks after that, I went to Helen at her office and I said to her, I've come to tell you that you and I were used by those men. They don't allow us to speak until it's midnight when everybody's asleep or something. And I said, and I've just come to tell you that you come back next year and I'll take you on. I'll bring you back on.
After the break, 1 minute she's staring everyone down, next minute she's escorting dignitaries onto the marae. What was that about?
In 2002, Helen Clark returned to Waitangi as Prime Minister, Tītewhai at her side. Tītewhai recounts how, a couple of years earlier, she'd been approached by kaumātua to accompany high-level dignitaries onto the marae.
And I said to them, I think you got the wrong person. And they started talking about why shouldn't I? I'd be the best person to... And I said, I am not going to take any messages from you people and give it to them. I bring them the enemy to you on the marae and you talk about it to them. That's your job.
Do you think that they were plotting that if they got you to do that, that might keep you away from doing that?
I don't know what they thought, really. I didn't ask.
Despite other contenders, Tītewhai has held on to the role and commemorations at Waitangi have settled down somewhat. When Prince Charles visited in 2019, Tītewhai gave him a gift.
I gave him a copy of Ngāpuhi Speaks. I said to him, you need to go home and you need to read this carefully because you have not honoured your part of the treaty. He said, that's interesting. He said, I've heard this from Mummy. And he said, what does it really mean? I said, it's a contract that was made between my ancestors and yours.
In 1995, Nelson Mandela spoke to hundreds of anti-apartheid campaigners at St. Matthew's. After my band and I sung, I pulled Tītewhai up on stage. She wanted to give the great man a pounamu and something extra.
I remember kissing him nice and and I enjoyed it too.
You turned around. What did you say to everybody in the cathedral? Do you remember? You said, "He's got the softest lips."
A long-time member of the Black women's movement, Tītewhai was invited to South Africa to speak. By then, Nelson and Winnie Mandela had divorced.
There were messages all around to say that during the conference, no one was to talk about Winnie Mandela. It's a custom that when one of the high chiefs move away from their wives or their partners, we're not allowed to talk about, the women.
Yeah.
It was my turn to speak. And the first thing I did was to acknowledge Winnie. You could have heard a pin drop. I thought, you fellas can go to heck.
It made the news there. Likewise, in the Netherlands, when she suggested to the Dutch they reclaim the name Zeeland.
Well, it's just a scrappy little place. Nothing of any great beauty or anything. And I thought, palming that name on to us.
Deputy Police Commissioner Wally Haumaha first met Tītewhai in 1999 during the 11th APEC conference. His job was to check on security arrangements for the likes of President Bill Clinton.
We will make America the safest big country on earth.
I happened to walk into a building down where Tītewhai was instructing all of her people and the Māori wardens as to how they would operate around Auckland at the time during APEC. We didn't know each other, and she had a bit of a go at me because I didn't whakapapa to Ngāpuhi. And so we developed an interesting relationship.
At that time, we were calling them pigs.
Yes. He wouldn't have liked that.
No, and he told me to. And I said, so? That's how you treat our people? Like pigs. So, you change the way you treat our people, and then I'll change the way I talk to you. None of us wanted to work with any of them.
Yeah.
We didn't trust them.
We had to earn their trust.
Then came the foreshore and seabed protests of 2004.
That's when real changes began to happen.
Yep.
My role has been to get the people here safely, also in towns and cities that we've visited, to make sure that traffic flow hasn't been unimpeded, and it's worked according to the plan. It's been excellent. The people have listened. They've listened to the instructions that have been given, whether it be by the police, whether it be given by the hikoi organisers.
We saw another side of the police working with Wally.
Tītewhai Harawira and Wally Haumaha would continue to work together for many years after.
The advice that she was able to give, the conversations that she was able to have, you could always then decide what the next move would be, how you would then strategize. If we didn't listen, I think we certainly wouldn't have been in the places that we've ended up in today.
The Maori police are not valued enough because of their special wairua that they have to offer. Like, for instance, when the Tūhoi raids were on, I was at the police headquarters that day, and Wally and them were there, and we were having, a meeting to just see how we could advance things together for everybody. When he got the call to say that they had raided Tūhoi, and I said to Wally, and you didn't know about it? I was really angry about that.
After the break, I asked Tītewhai about Parliament and finally how she might want to be remembered.
Tītewhai is frustrated by Parliament. She sees it as a missed opportunity.
We've never had so many Maori in there in Parliament. It's not an opportunity for Maori to just get together as Maori across the board in Parliament and decide as Maori collectively that this is what would be better for Maori.
But we've got a spectrum of political thinking. We have very conservative voices who don't want to have Māori have co-governance, and then we're at the other end with Te Pāti Māori, you know, so it's kind of, I suppose it's a reality, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I think that we should have a Māori parliament of our own.
You were one of the instigators for Te Pāti Māori, right?
Yep.
When your son decided to go in there, did you just have a big whānau hui and thrash it all out?
Oh, well, he decided that that's what he wanted to do. And I thought, well, okay, you know, we've all tried this, that and something else.
Yep.
Let's give this a go. No harm in trying.
That's very practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important to, you know, to have that ambition to give it a go.
Hone gave it a go, spending 2 years with Te Pāti Māori before splitting off to form his own mana party for his final term. Tītewhai gave radio a go too. She was a talkback host on Radio Wātea for many years and has had a long love-hate relationship with the media.
You know, I read somewhere that you described yourself as a national diversion, that sometimes the media can focus on you and not the issue.
You get a Māori who's up there pushing and speaking out, and that's when the media comes up with all the negative stuff.
How did you handle criticism of your mother that might have come through the media or whatever?
Oh, that was hard. It's very hard, yeah. And you never forget it because she's your mum.
Mind you, she's not been averse to dishing out criticism or insults herself. Never held back either.
Absolutely none of your business. This is Ngāpuhi and our right to be Ngāpuhi and to do what we choose on our marae.
Do you think you've mellowed out over the years?
Hell no.
There can be challenges around strategies.
Yes.
Do you think that plays a part in the kind of attention that you attract? Because some of your strategies might be seen as pretty, you know, radical.
Well, all of them seem to be radical to, you know, the Pakeha who want to maintain the status quo, no matter what the cost.
Sometimes, though, we're not just fighting against the Crown and Pakeha, we're fighting against each other.
Each other.
And I guess like with you and your family, and I have to say, you know, sometimes there's been accusations of bullying. How do you respond to that?
I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't respond.
Kia ora, everybody.
In 1985, Tītewhai was head of wharepaia at Carrington Hospital, and in 1989, she and 4 others were charged and found guilty of violent assault on a mental health patient. For some, that confirmed her image as a bully. Others saw her as being scapegoated by a system she was trying to change. And those divisions remain today.
What happened there?
Someone hit one of the patients, and I was told by the judge, because I was the head of the thing, that I was responsible for what happened and all of that sort of stuff. And I thought, oh well, you know.
Tītewhai herself was convicted of threatening to kill.
That, that whole experience at Wharepaia exploded in the media and would have created an even more negative impression of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
How did you cope with that?
Well, you know, when I look back on it, I just didn't worry me. It didn't. I mean, I didn't lose any sleep over it.
No regrets about what happened in there? Or?
No, not at all.
She was jailed for 9 months.
How did you cope inside?
Loved it.
Did you?
Oh, I loved it. We get together as women in there and we get this. I got a sewing machine in and I got all this and I got that for women to do things, you know. I made a whole lot of dolls.
Those dolls dominate the lounge of the Avondale house she's lived in since 1952. Tītewhai met her husband John Puriri Harawira after he returned home from the war.
My husband played the piano with the Maori bands for the dances.
What was your song?
Oh, The Orchid and the Rose. That was my theme song when I was working at the radio station at Waitangi.
The orchid that I overlooked was you.
He was very quiet man, very gentle man, much like myself.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful father.
Yeah, very calming presence in our lives was our dad.
And a wonderful husband. The best. Yeah. I've never seen or met anybody that I would even consider running around and picking up their socks and their jogs. Not me.
Was your husband an activist as well?
No.
John, she says, played both the mother and father role while she was out doing her thing. The couple were both Māori wardens, but John also worked as a taxi driver.
Sometimes I would drive the taxi while he was asleep and he'd get up to go to work and there's no petrol in the car. Oh, well, you know, I went out and did some jobs.
A qualified nurse, Tītewhai insisted that she and John deliver their 8 children at home. Tītewhai never swore, never touched alcohol. She made her children's clothes on an old Singer sewing machine. In 1977, her beloved husband passed away, leaving the toll operator working hard to hold her family together.
You know, that's a lot of kids. And as a single parent, did you have rules in your house?
The only rules were to look after one another. Just get up and feed your face and go to school. And don't muck around.
No one could ever accuse Tītewhai Harawira of ever mucking around. And she's proud of the role she and others have played.
The groundwork that we've done for different kaupapa, our children are going to carry it on. Because today they are strong. They don't have to feel, you know, isolated because they're a different colour. Like they made us feel.
Now, there's so many issues, so many fires to put out. There's really big ones too, like the climate crisis. Where do we put our energy?
First of all, learn how to come together without all the hang-ups. Oh, I can't come over there because I don't like so-and-so. And realise the strength of local bodies. They make decisions about us every day. Where we live, where you walk, how you go to school, and all of those things.
The matriarch of the Harawira clan has no regrets.
How would you like to be remembered?
Just as I am, Don't try and dress me up and pretend that, oh, you know, gosh, she was so nice and just so lovely, and I can be all those things too.
But what else can you be?
I can be a real bitch when it suits me. Yeah. And enjoy every minute of it.